Hi, I'm Lisa Loftman, and I'm an emotional wellness consultant with the MSU Health for You program. I'm in the process of creating a 7-episode video series based on the book, The Happiness Trap by Dr. Russ Harris. And the series is designed to help you learn how to increase your psychological flexibility, really even to understand what that is and why a person would want to have more of it and how to utilize it as we live our work and our personal lives, hopefully more effectively with greater satisfaction. In the first video, I did an overview of what acceptance commitment theory is, and I asked you to complete an assessment that would sort of just be a picture snapshot in time of where you're at with the 6 core skills of the theory, of the teaching. And in the second video, I focused on one of those skills, strengthening the observing self, understanding what that is, and being able to operate more awake and aware and self-aware. That video was called Waking Up the Witness, and it was really about strengthening the part of us that can notice what's going on with us in any given moment. Like right now, I can notice that I feel pretty clear-minded, I feel pretty grounded and relaxed, I'm excited about what I'm doing, kind of all systems are go right now. In another moment, I might notice that I'm caught up with a thought, that I'm really reactive, that I'm psychologically rigid in the moment, and my witness self being able to see that is what allows that moment to shift into a more effective moment. At the end of the last video, I said we were going to talk about the skill of connection this week, and after getting off the video, I realized that's not the best direction for us to go next, so I changed my mind. And today we're going to be talking about diffusion and learning to diffuse your thinking in a moment. Before we get too far away, I also said that I would start with sort of some larger picture thought about acceptance commitment theory. And my offering for you about that today is really that the word ACT is important in the discussion. Acceptance commitment theory stands for, it's an acronym for acceptance commitment theory, but it's also just an action-oriented mantra that when you're having an unwanted personal experience, if you think of the word ACT and then you remember that it stands for accepting what is in this moment, committing to responding to that from my core values, not my reactive self, but my core self, my true self, my wisdom-guided self, and then actually taking action that's in line with those values. It's not just about having a less stressful experience. It's about taking more effective action, which is why acceptance commitment theory has such vast implications in the business setting, because too often we don't take the action that's required. Another offering this week is just that this equation, that a way to think about psychological flexibilities is simply mindfulness, which is being present and open with curiosity, kind of openness. Mindfulness plus your values is going to drive your psychological flexibility. I really like this diagram, which will look a lot to like the assessment, but with less words. But I love how in the center, psychological flexibility is what these 6 skills generates. And I love the intersecting triangles, kind of demonstrates movement to me. And that as you work on all these skills, the other skills get stronger, and all of that's going on, and you're generating more psychological flexibility, which is really the ability to be present and open up. I would say attached to your innate health and well-being, your creative force, your life energy. Be present, open up to that, and then do what matters. I like the summary on this slide of what each of those skills are. You want to be here now, open up and accept what's going on, be able to notice if you're caught up in your thinking or not, and be able to navigate that, come back to who you were before you maybe got caught up in that thinking, and your self-observer at the bottom, the witness, also tuning in to help that all happen. So the skills at the top and to the left are really about, again, noticing how you might be constricted in the moment, noticing it and opening back up to that full flow of your energy moving through your psychological hose. And then again, the skills on the right being, what is it that you're wanting to water, and are you actually watering today? Are you moving in the direction? Are you doing what it takes? The words in green are there just in case you are reading the Happiness Trap book as you go along with these videos, which I highly recommend. These are the words, those skills can be called also. They're sort of used exchangeably, where contact with the present moment is referred to as connection, where acceptance is really also talked about as expansion, like making space for feelings and thoughts that we might be having that are challenging. And then again, the observing self is also sometimes called your witness self. So if you go back to the diagram, I'm just reminding you that if your scores were closer to the center of the diagram, where you spend most of your time lost in thought about either the future or the past, if you struggle with your thoughts and feelings as you have them, sort of debate them, try to control them, try to effort to like navigate those, kind of whip your thinking into shape, and your emotions trying to control those. If your thoughts are telling you things and you like really get fooled by your thinking, and if you can't even separate yourself, like if you don't even know you're the thinker, and all of that's causing you to be more reactive than value guided, then at this moment you are more psychologically rigid. All of us have moments of psychological rigidity where whatever's going on, we tend to get kinked up. So you'll never be completely free of psychological rigidity. We just want you to live in psychological flexibility and occasionally visit psychologically rigid, as opposed to living in psychologically rigid and occasionally visiting psychologically flexible. If your scores are closer to the outside, and I'm currently doing my best to have great acceptance for how dorky that circle looks, but it is what it is, and I'm moving with it. But if your scores are to the outer side of it, then you are in the present moment more often. You get that you're feeling something right now, but your feelings are fluid and temporary. You need to honor them, not ignore them, but not get swept up in them. And you're noticing your thinking, and instead of like being at the mercy of your thinking, your wisdom, your witness self, is assessing which thought you should go with and which thought you shouldn't. Today, we're going to focus on this skill. We're going to try to help you move from when you get really fooled with your thinking and driven by a thought. I mean, let's be honest. Jails are filled with a lot of people who got caught up in a thought and acted out of it before their wisdom could like tell them something different. Folks end up in the EAP office for a similar reason, where like they had a thought and they expressed their thought in an email and they hit send before their witness could ever sort of say, wow, maybe we wanted to step away from the keyboard. We want to move towards you being able to witness and choose the thought that's most lined up with where you want to go. You want to be more discriminating of the thoughts that you're going to act on. You're still going to have the full range of thoughts that you had before, but it would kind of be like looking at the pictures on your iPhone and deciding that you don't want to tap and lean into the very first picture, because maybe the picture you really want would be the third or fourth picture or thought, that one might actually be more useful and effective. So that's what we're talking about today. So before we get started, let's talk about what is a thought. What do we mean when we're talking about thought? There's lots of different ways to talk about that. What we mean for the purpose of this conversation is that a thought is a form of mental activity. It's brain activity. You have brain waves. Some of those thoughts take the shape of words or images in our head, right? Thoughts are words or images, nothing more or less. They're words or images that come into our head and then leave our head. And those thoughts and images we use to make up our stories about everything and everybody all the time. Our thoughts tell us about life and how to live it. They're kind of mental instructions to ourselves. And some of those are useful and helpful. Like when my thoughts tell me how to get to my favorite restaurant for lunch, the fact that I have that memory-based thought that can tell me how to get there is useful if I want to eat, particularly if I want to eat there. Our thoughts can also tell us who we are, who we should be, what to avoid. This is more like the beliefs and biases, opinions, judgments, all of those things you hold so tightly. Those are also just thoughts and images in your head. Sometimes those thoughts are telling us what we should do. So it's kind of like our personal rules, plans, strategies, thoughts that we have that we attach to as what we should do. And I always suggest that people are living their lives according to the good book of Lisa, for example, if you're me, and that I have been cultivating a rule book over the course of my whole life. Some of my first rules are probably in finger paints and then stick figures. As I grew up, I started to create a set of rules to live my life by. And some of those rules were given to me by other people, culture, media, dominant cultural values, my parents, my siblings, peers. All along, I'm picking up these rules, and I'm like holding the rules I hold to be self-evident, that I'm gonna pledge my allegiance to these rules. But really along the way, we don't do a lot of fact checking. So we end up with a lot of rules that were maybe helpful once, but they're not helpful now. Now they're kind of outdated. Or rules that weren't really accurate in the first place. Or rules like, a rule would be that I had once that I had to really over-prepare in order to do the best I could on a test. It turns out when I'm relaxed and just preparing in a more moderate manner, I actually do better on the test. Turns out that rule was wrong, but because I held on to that rule, I was at the mercy of test taking for many, many years in my life. Just an idea, some thoughts are brand new, never before thought thoughts that just come to us. Those can be insights, creative ideas, that something could just hit me out of the blue. I could have a thought that I've never had before, but I could also have a thought that nobody on the planet's ever had before. We are the source of brand new thoughts come through us and to us all the time. Where do they come from? We'll have to figure out what out of the blue means at a different time. Some of the thoughts we have are previously thought thoughts. They're thoughts we've maybe had over and over. They've actually become habitual or conditioned thinking. We have thought filters, and those thoughts are more contained in our memory. So I think of it as we have a parade of thoughts every day. Some of those thoughts are brand new, and some of those thoughts we pull from our thought bucket. And that while those parade of thoughts come through every day, throughout the day, if you think about how many thoughts you've already had today, some researchers say that we have between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day, and I often say I could have that many just on how do they count that, how do they figure that out. But if we have this parade of thoughts every day, we also, throughout any given day, pluck one of those thoughts out of the parade and start having a bunch of thoughts about that thought. Similarly to how we might put a slide in the slide projector in the slot that the light shines through, and for as long as that thought is being held in that illumination, that's the story that we're thinking about. So thoughts are fluid throughout the day, and then we can also start to hold a thought, get active with the thought, ruminate about that thought. Sometimes those thoughts about a thought are useful and helpful, and they're helping us create something. And sometimes it's just rumination that creates stress. It's rumination with negative affect and just kind of slows us down. So that's kind of what we mean when we're talking about a thought. What we're talking about today is trying to help you start to see when you're fused with a thought. And so it begs the question, what the heck is fusion? So fusion is a way to talk about blending or melding together. Like you could fuse two pieces of metal together and they become one. With thought, when you're fused with a thought, you and your thought are one. And when you are then defusing from a thought, that thought can go on. So unlike two pieces of metal that once we meld together, they're together forever, we fuse with a thought and we unfuse with a thought all day long. Even while we're sleeping. So it's just when you and your thought are fused together, and that in the moments, that's fusion. And you bring your thinking to life through your sensory system. And I just want to spend a couple moments talking about that because it's just so powerful. We're all connected to a life energy that allows us to be existing. Something's beating my heart, something's allowing my lungs to respirate, and something's powering my psychological experience. So we're all connected to that energy, and we all have this incredible sense of consciousness or awareness. It's a sensory system that's designed to bring to life physiologically any thought we're currently holding. And it's the intersection of those three principles that all humans have. We're connected to this energy, we have this sense of awareness, and we hold thought. We have a lot of thought, and as we hold a thought and bring it to life through our consciousness, it becomes real in our body. A couple examples of that might be if I were to reach down and grab a lemon and really start rolling that lemon, because when I was a bartender, I learned that that's how you make them really juicy. And I'm going to cut a slice of that lemon and I'm going to suck on that lemon. Now, there are some of you watching that probably just had a physiological experience of that lemon. Maybe you puckered, maybe you had the hair on the back of your neck stand up, maybe you had increased saliva in your mouth. That's what happens for me. And that happened even though you're probably, unless it's just really quite a coincidence, not sucking on a lemon at this moment. The thought about it got brought to life through your body in a way that gave you a physiological experience of eating a lemon when maybe you didn't. Perhaps for some of you that didn't work. So if I were to put my fingernails on a chalkboard, I'm guessing some of you had the physiological experience of that. Usually when there's people actually in the room with me, I can see people shiver and make a face, and then they tend to get mad at me for bringing that up. Moment to moment to moment, whether the thought is a pleasant thought, like maybe hanging out with a piece of cheesecake and like really taking in the beauty of the cheesecake. And I love cheesecake because if you listen really carefully, cheesecake makes sound. And then I'm going to take that, like the texture of the cheesecake. When I put that in my mouth, I can just really be with the taste and quality of cheesecake. If you have a strong association with cheesecake, you probably just had a physiological experience of that. Whether it's a pleasant thought, like your favorite dessert, or an unpleasant thought, like remembering something you did 6 months ago that you have shame about, if I have that thought come up to me, I just did, physiologically, my stomach could flip because I just started to entertain and hang out with that thought. That's the physiology that I now have. And that's how thought works all the time, is we have a thought, we physiologically bring it to life. That thought then leaves, we go back to physiologically neutral, another thought comes, we bring that physiologically to life. Joe Bolte-Taylor, who wrote a book called The Stroke of Insight, has an excellent TED Talk, says that the physiological life of a thought is about 90 seconds. And even if we have a strong thought and we diffuse from it, physiologically it takes a minute for our bodies to get back into equilibrium about that. What fusion is when you're caught up or gripped or hijacked by a thought, you're not aware, you're caught up in that thought, you're swept away in it, kind of is a way to think about it. And when you're fused, there's a tendency to forget that there's other thoughts you could be having. Like you're so totally and completely invested in the one you're having, you don't see that there's other ways to think about the situation. This happens in staff meetings all the time where somebody has a thought, their ego get attached to that thought, they're really gripped on that thought, and they're not able to see that what the person sitting next to them is saying is actually a better idea, or that if you weren't attached to that thought, you might at least understand why people are having a hard time with your thought. When you're in a state of fusion, your thought owns you. And what we're really trying to do is help you wake up your witness so much that there's less time when you're totally fused and unaware of it, so that there's less time when you're at the mercy of your own thinking. Or in my past, I used to terrorize myself with my own thinking, because I would get really caught up in the fear-based ideas I was generating, and I would have no idea that I was actually the one creating that. It's a way we harm ourselves with our own creativity. When you're fused, you tend to believe that your thoughts are reality, like the reality, not just your personal reality, but reality in general. You tend to think your thoughts are truth and right, sometimes just. You tend to think your thoughts are critically important. This happened the other day where I was making some vacation plans with my partner, and I had a thought about it being really important for this one piece to happen. And it wasn't until later in the day that I realized that that wasn't really a necessary or useful thought, and removing that thought from the equation made everything work out so much more easily and in alignment with my core values about the trip we were taking. When you're fused, you tend to think your thoughts are order and you have to follow them. People who are super, super fused with their thoughts may have a paranoid thought that's telling them they should do something, and they, at that point, way out there, they take bizarre action because they believe the thought that the FBI is communicating through their molar. We're on the same continuum as those folks. We're just more awake that we're the thinker than some people are. We want to continue to increasingly wake up so that we're not listening to our thoughts like orders, and not feeling like our thoughts, every thought is wise. Some of your thoughts are wise, but some of your thoughts are really not wise, and some are just flat out ridiculous. And thoughts are not threats to be taken seriously. We threaten ourselves. We're critical with our thinking a great deal of time. We're self-critical, self-shaming. We have these thoughts, and they're just thoughts. We get easily and seriously fooled by our own thinking. And that's not just something you do or I do. It's something we as a people do. And then how we play out our interactions together depends on how fused I am, how fused you are, how is that conversation going to unfold, depends on that. We need some new instructions. And the first one I would say is that when you're fused with a thought and you see it, you don't need to figure out why you're having the thought. A lot of times what happens is we try to figure out the content of a thought. We're having a thought, we're thinking it, we see that we're stuck on it, and then we start having conversation about why we're stuck on it. And the entire time I'm asking myself why I'm stuck on it, I'm still engaging with that thought. If I try to figure it out, if I try to control it, if I try to make myself not have it, if I do anything active with that thought, it stays here. It only has a chance to leave my mind when I'm no longer giving my attention to it. So it's not about, in the moment when you're fused, it's not about figuring out the content of the thought. It's about shifting your attachment of it. I sometimes talk about it like a trombone slide. Like, if I have a thought that I'm gripped by, whether it's true or not true, useful or helpful, I don't have much flexibility. If I notice that I'm attached to the thought, I don't want to do anything with the thought. I want to bring my attention to the here and now, maybe on my breath, maybe just ground myself to the floor, maybe another breath. Maybe I might then wonder, like, are there other thoughts a person could have that was having this sort of situation? Then out here I could say, is that thought useful or helpful? But here I'm likely to be able to have other thoughts about the thought. I'm not just only gripped on that one. So when you're stuck on a thought, you don't have to figure out the content of it and why you're having it while you're having it. You can diffuse first and then reflect about the thought later when you're not so fused and you have a greater perspective. Here, no perspective. Here, I'm still having the thought, but I have perspective about it. Let's see what the next one is here. You don't need to make yourself not have it anymore. Thoughts naturally come and go. They're fluid. Over time, the less you pay attention to a thought, the less frequently you have it. We actually remap the neurological processes in our brain as we sort of notice and release a thought, bring our attention back to the present moment, don't give it much attention. This is true for cravings. I'm a gratefully recovering nicotine addict, and when I get a thought in my head about wanting a cigarette, I used to try to make myself not have it anymore, and that created a really big struggle with the thought. And the more I struggled with it, the more at risk of actually doing the smoking I was. Now I'm much more likely to say, I'm having a thought about smoking. I often say something like, boy, it'll be nice if someday I hate that smell. Like if I smell somebody smoking, and I have a thought, oh, I want that. Instead of fighting that, I just know I'm just having a thought right now. In a few minutes, it won't be there anymore. I often say something like, boy, it'll be nice if someday I hate that. I don't now, but okay, what was I doing? And I just bring my attention back to whoever I was talking to, or if I'm walking down the street, I'll just bring my attention to actually how my feet are hitting the pavement. And then as my attention gets more away from that urge, I ask myself what my true values are about smoking, and I'm in that moment a really committed non-smoker, and so I just disregard it. And being able to notice fusion and not struggle with your thoughts is a really big part of recovery that we don't talk about very much. And the way to become free of a thought is simply to create space between you and your thought. I'm going to show you a couple things visually about that. So you may or may not have noticed that this orange pillow has been in the room with me while I've been talking to you today. And that could represent a really big thought that may be about something going on in my life. It could even be a troubling thought. And while I came to work today and did not have the situation resolved, and I have some troubling thoughts about that, it hasn't particularly bothered me or been interruptive of my high quality performance while talking to you. And I don't have to make this, I don't have to figure this out. I don't have to take care of this. I don't have to figure out all the answers of this. I just want to notice as I go throughout the day that at times it's going to be here, and at times it might be here, which actually makes me a little bit hard to be heard. Diffusion is really obviously you have to notice that you're holding the thought, and that seems obvious, but the vast majority of the time we are not aware when we're fused. So I could get caught up in something that happened at work just before I left, for example, and I could have that on my brain while I'm driving home. And I'm a less safe driver with this thought on my brain. I'm also a less safe driver if I'm struggling with this while I'm driving home. And what would be really helpful is for me to bring my attention to how I feel in the seat of my car and how I'm driving down the road, which would allow this thought to just become more idle. If I'm holding it and resisting it and trying not to have it, there's still a great deal of energy. If I did this with this thought all day long, it's on my mind, and I'm trying to keep it out of my work, but I'm still resisting it. My arm is tired already. And if I did it all day, it really would be ready. It would be like having an app open on your phone, draining your energy. And what I really want to do is trust that I can separate from that thought. It's not going to go away. I'm not going to not take care of it. I'm just in the moment allowing myself to bring all my energy sources to the present moment, to reset, let myself take a breath, to physiologically quiet, to ask myself what's the most useful and effective use of my time and energy right now. If this thought is about something I cannot address right now or fix or solve for myself, my work team, the institution, or the nation, then right now my energy could really be about how can I provide a Spartan experience to the next person that's in my office? Or how can I get my case notes done so that I don't fall behind? So notice I still have the thought. I'm actually still holding the thought, but I'm more at peace about that, and my attention is back on what I'm going to do. That's helpful when the thought, is sort of this kind of a thought. But if the thought's actually this chair, and I'm carrying that heavy thought around, you can see how even more energy is going to be involved. So it's not about the thought, it's about your relationship to it. And it's about just starting to notice when you're here. And the more attention you give to it again, the closer it's going to be. So in a moment when you know that the thought is not useful or helpful, whether it's true or not, you want to bring your attention back to the present moment. So here's an example that I would offer. That how thoughts work. These actually have words on them that I'm going to say. But let's say I have 15 or 20 or more case notes to do. Those are the notes that I write after a client might leave my office. If my thought is, I hate writing case notes, and I don't know anybody that's in the field of counseling that adores writing case notes. So it's a pretty legitimate thought to have, oh, I don't really like writing case notes. But if I have a bunch of case notes to do and I'm attached to that thought, I'm so about the idea that I hate case notes. I'm so resisting that I have to do the case notes that I'm not writing any case notes. And it's in this state of mind where I might say, well, I'm going to go talk to people in the hallway, or I'm going to get on Facebook, or maybe I'll do them tomorrow. If I start arguing with myself, like judging myself, why do you hate case notes? It's part of your job. You should do the case notes. I don't want to do the case notes. You should do the case notes. None of that's useful or helpful. What's helpful to me is if I notice I'm resisting that I have case notes to do. If I go back to the word act, it is what it is. I'm behind in my case notes, and this is my time to write them. Committing to my core value about case notes is they're better when I do them sooner. My whole life is better when I'm not behind. And so for me and for the work, the quality of the work, my value is to do them as soon as I can. Then I just drop into a place where I'm no longer resisting that I have to do the case notes, and I just do the case notes. And how I do that, this is a preview for connection, is I'm going to totally bring all my attention to the unwanted task of case notes, and I'm just going to do the case note I'm doing right now. It's not about that I have 30. It's about I'm doing this one. And so I bring that person to mind. I remember the session. I remember the most important thing about the session. I type it, feel my hands on the keyboard. I'm breathing. I'm now doing case notes in a non-resistant fashion, which means physiologically I'm not draining my energy, resisting and resenting that which is just a natural part of my job. How many parts of your work or life roles do you resist when they're just part of what you do? If I'm tending to a baby in the middle of the night and I'm resisting that I'm awake, and I'm resisting and resenting that I have to tend to somebody when I'd rather be sleeping, I'm going to be tending to that kid in a state of resistance, as opposed to being at peace and resting while taking care. I may still be awake, but I'm not awake and not resting. We need more awake mental rest. And you can't, the amount of time you spend fused with thoughts that you do not need to be fused with are systematically lowering the amount of awake mental rest time you have in the course of a day. And that's part of what acceptance commitment theory does. It may be true that I'm not making enough money to take care of all my obligations. That is another thought that, while it could be true, it's not helpful to hold it so close that I'm in an emotional upset and reactivity and spinning around so that I'm not clear about what I value. When I have more distance from this thought and can hold it, it's like it's not everything, it's just a thought. And actually, it's not actually true. I mean, I actually then become aware that while bills and budgets are hard for the single mom of 3, and sometimes I have to use my credit card to buy toilet paper, I also have a boatload of privilege, and I wake up to the gratitude, I wake up to my ability to navigate, and that's usually when I have a really good, brilliant new idea about how to generate more revenue in my life. And then I go lean into that. And so this thought becomes increasingly relevant, not only in the moment, but over the course of time, it becomes less true because I'm using my psychological flexibility to enhance my earnings and reduce my bills. Creativity helps that happen. Psychological flexibility helps that happen. Psychological rigidity, rumination, and upset don't allow my creativity to come into the game. So that's just a couple of examples of how fusion works. And what's important here is noticing that you're fused and creating space between you and your thought. I'm going to stop the video now. Actually, let me just double check because I think maybe there's another point I wanted to make about that. Again, it's not important whether the thought is true or not. It's about whether it's useful or helpful to hang on to it. Does it improve your performance to hang on to that thought? Does it help you take care of yourself? Does it help you take value-guided action? If the answer to any of those last 3 questions is no, then creating space between you and gently creating space is the better, more psychologically flexible path. So I'm going to stop there, and in just a few moments, I'm going to do another video. But I just wanted you to sort of sit with that. That's sort of how fusion and diffusion work. And then I'm going to make another video in just a moment about some diffusion strategies. So when you notice that you're fused, what do you do? So before watching that video, just spend a little time, maybe a couple days even, just noticing how fusion works. And in the meantime, bringing your attention to the present moment, which is connection, which we'll talk about next time, is the core skill that helps you get space. As you give your psychological attention to something else, that thought, which is only powered by your giving your attention to it, will dissipate. Don't believe a word I say. Check it out in your own experience and see what you notice for yourself.